let's see if those checks cash. Let's see if they clear. Musk promises a lot of large financial gifts to people. He promises a lot of big things. I mean, he's been promising that we can get to Mars in 10 years for about 15 years. So I think that, and we're nowhere near that, of course. So I think that like with any promise that Musk makes, I think that it should be taken with several pillars of salt.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump's campaign has been doing, because just as you thought it couldn't get any more bizarre, the tech billionaire Elon Musk has said that he's going to give away $1 million per day to a registered voter in Pennsylvania, that swing state, of course, until the day of the election. Now, to be in with a chance of winning the money, you have to sign a pro-Constitution petition by his campaign group, America PAC, which he set up to support Donald Trump. This is what it sounded like when he surprised the first winner, in inverted commas, I had no idea this was going to happen, with $1 million of his own personal fortune.
By the way, John had no idea. So anyway, you're welcome. The only thing we ask for the $1 million is that you be a spokesperson for the petition, and that's it. Really, that's it. Do you want to say anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Elon. This is great. I'm really ecstatic. I want to congratulate you on your rocket catch last week. Big curveball. But yeah, I've been following you for 10 years. Got your biography 10 years ago, and been watching ever since, and big fan. So
thank you. All right. Well, cool.
I know you will have your own views on, spending scandals here, Lord Ali and the glasses, etc. But it is a world away, isn't it, to have the world's richest man handing out $1 million to people. And this comes in the same week as it was revealed that Musk is a Republican super donor, because he's given nearly $75 million to Trump's campaign in the past few months alone. Why? What does he want out of it? We know that he supports Trump, but what does he want in return? Well, joining me now is Eoin Higgins, author of Owned: How Tech Billionaires on the Right Bought the Loudest Voices on the Left. Hi there, Eoin.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah,
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Good, thank you. Absolute pleasure to have you as well. I mean, before we get into your book and all the things that you've written about Musk before, what's your reaction to this latest news? Because it's amazing he still has the capability to surprise, but he does. Giving away $1 million a day to voters in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think that my initial reaction is, let's see if those checks cash. Let's see if they clear. Musk promises a lot of large financial gifts to people. He promises a lot of big things. I mean, he's been promising that we can get to Mars in 10 years for about 15 years. So I think that, and we're nowhere near that, of course. So I think that like with any promise that Musk makes, I think that it should be taken with several pillars of salt. However, having said that, if he is going to do this, and again, for somebody with his personal fortune, this is really not a huge amount of money. It's
his hotel bill for a year, isn't it? It's his personal flight bill, yeah.
Right. I mean, like, even if that, right? Like it might even be. It's inconsequential to him to give $1 million to one voter for the next 3 weeks. I mean, that's maybe $25 million total. That's absolutely nothing to him. I do think that the reason that he is doing this, though, to kind of drum up attention for Trump and to generate more enthusiasm for his particular brand of right-wing politics, is probably a little bit more interesting than the actual promise that he's making, in that Musk continues to want to drive the conversation in the U.S. political spheres toward the right in a very specific way that touches on his particular ideology, whether it's anti-regulation or the brand of social conservatism that he adheres to.
Yeah, I mean, when he talks, if you take him at his word, he does seem sincerely to believe that democracy itself is at stake. That's why he says he got involved, even though it was, of course, Trump who questioned the results of the last election. And if anyone's put democracy at stake, it's him. But, his thesis is Kamala is a puppet. More immigration means that the Republicans won't win again. So this is kind of your last chance to vote for those values. That lower taxes mean not just his business, but everyone's business can flourish, and he's an entrepreneur. He does genuinely seem to believe those things.
Kind of. I would say that he certainly believes that more immigration of what I think he would consider the wrong kind is going to damage the United States. And if you want to know what he means by the wrong kind of immigration, I think you can kind of refer to his background being from South Africa. As far as his devotion to democracy and freedom of speech, which is kind of a part of the rhetoric that he uses here, I don't really put a lot of stock in that. The way he has run Twitter or X or however you want to refer to it now has resulted in a lot of censorship to the benefit of censorious regimes like Modi's India, like Saudi Arabia. And those are arguably authoritarian regimes, depending on who you are talking to. And I think that his refusal to enforce this idea of freedom of speech in the face of these challenges can kind of raise some questions. As far as cutting taxes, lower regulations is pretty standard right-wing, certainly right-wing American, just pandering to the base there. I mean, like this is the kind of thing they've been saying for decades. So,
well, yes, but I suppose what's in it for him is that he does run all of these companies that are based out of America, right? So SpaceX obviously has the opportunity to get more government contracts, I presume, and tax breaks for Tesla would be really significant. So, I mean, is it a business play? Is it that, he's using X to just put himself at the center of the conversation? It's actually just about his ego? I mean, what's your view?
Yeah, I think it's kind of complicated. I think that there is a lot of him without really getting into his interiority or his inner motivations, just from what we can see publicly. I believe that there is some ideological swing towards being anti the suppression of conservative speech, or as he perceives it. I think that there is a kind of interesting social conservatism that is, kind of about birth rates and race and kind of all of this kind of stuff flurrying around in it. I do think that is matched with his government contracts and the way that he has kind of almost like used his influence with the federal government in order to continue to have his companies be incredibly powerful. You mentioned SpaceX. There's a new report in the New York Times, I believe it's from today, where it talks about how he has $15.4 billion in federal contracts, primarily NASA and DoD, Department of Defense, that are being used by SpaceX. So that's $15.4 billion. Now, another reason that this is relevant and somewhat interesting here is there's a case to be made. Like, you could argue that what he is doing with this $1 million, like quote unquote $1 million giveaway to voters in Pennsylvania may indicate that he is breaking the law, breaking some campaign finance laws. The question is, somebody whose companies, especially the SpaceX, right, which is so tied to NASA and NASA's launches and the rockets, just billions and billions of dollars, Department of Defense, someone whose contracts and companies are so intertwined with the American state, it makes you question where the line would be, where they might actually take action to prosecute him. And I think that he is probably making the calculation that at least what he's doing right now is not the kind of thing that if the federal government, no matter if it's Biden, Trump, Harris, whoever, is in the White House, the calculation of whether or not it's worth it to go after him. And again, the White House does not control what the Department of Justice investigates or whether they would go after him or not. But I think that there is what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter if it's a Democratic administration or Republican administration. I just don't see the Department of Justice going after him for this specifically. Now, having said that, if the Department of Justice wants to go ahead and prove me wrong, please do. But I find it hard to believe that we would see that.
Well, I suppose it's that, legislation would really struggle to keep up with someone acting in this, I suppose, very entrepreneurial Silicon Valley style, right? It's the move fast and break things mentality, isn't it? I'm going to do something nuts you hadn't expected, and it's going to be after the election by the time you get to work out whether it was legal or not. And I suppose out of those two candidates, Trump and Harris, you can see why someone like that would prefer Trump's unpredictability and his agility and his entrepreneurialism. I mean, who else in Silicon Valley is backing Trump?
Well, I do want to just add there that perhaps that's what it is. Trump has effectively said that Musk will be in charge of a lot of the regulatory state, or at least have a big voice in it, if Trump is elected once again as president. So I think that's probably a bigger motivator than Trump's entrepreneurial spirit, like the fact that he would give Musk control or at least like a lot of sway over these regulatory agencies that could determine, the path forward for some of those companies. As far as who else in Silicon Valley is backing Trump, my book, which is out in February, does go into this. I primarily talk about Elon Musk. I talk about Peter Thiel, the billionaire investor who was an early Facebook investor. He is one of the co-founders of Palantir, which is another tech company with a lot of ties to the quote unquote deep state here in the U.S. The aspects of the federal government that are involved with defense, surveillance, etc. Mark Andreessen, another billionaire investor, he is the original co-creator of Netscape Navigator, which was an early precursor to Internet Explorer, Firefox, Google Chrome, Safari, etc. And I also talk a little bit about David Sachs and the investors that are in the All In podcast. This is a popular Silicon Valley investor podcast. David Sachs is part of the PayPal mafia. Now, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but essentially, there were the PayPal kind of came when Peter Thiel and Elon Musk kind of put their heads together in the late 90s, and they created this payment app, PayPal, which ended up making them all very wealthy. And within the PayPal mafia, within this kind of like loose confederation of investors and PayPal executives is David Sachs, who went to Stanford shortly after Thiel, I believe, and they wrote a book together, which was a bit of a right-wing hit in the 90s before PayPal, so they knew each other before. So David Sachs is in there, a few other investors. These kind of movers and shakers within Silicon Valley, these right-wing movers and shakers, have used their platforms, both the platforms that they invest in and the platforms that they have by being media figures, whether they're writing, like Andreessen will often write things, or if they're podcasting like Sachs, or if they're buying a social media company so everyone has to listen to them like Musk. These guys all want to get their message out there, their right-wing message, and they have been doing this pretty effectively, I think, for the past 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, and if the polls are to believe, they've got a chance of winning with Trump. I'm going to have to end it there, but it was really fascinating speaking to you, and thank you for your time. Eoin Higgins there, author of Owned, How Tech Billionaires on the Right Bought the Loudest Voices on the Left. And as he said, I think that book is out next year.